Let's take that theme for a moment. You said show students or provide exemplars for students of what that process could be. So what would be perhaps a good process a high school student should follow, middle school, and maybe if you can, an elementary school process where students are almost.
So at every level, I firmly believe, and I've come from the New York City space where I taught over 170 students, but I have a lot of students. I know how difficult it is. However, I always had a schedule where I would have check-ins with students. And as a part of my check-in with students, I would have students create their own mini goal for each unit, where they would write down their own SMART goal, and then we talk about where they were at in the process. So I think regardless of, and I did this from grades 6 through 12, and I've also worked with elementary school teachers and doing something very similar where the students can talk about, well, where am I at right now? What am I going to work on? So I think having opportunities for students to actually share their own goals and develop that metacognition in relation to what they're learning is really, really important. As students progress, when they're in elementary school, we may provide them with those checklists for executive functioning. Did you, when you write your essay, make sure you indented and have finger spaces and check punctuation, all the things, right? Have a topic sentence. As students progress, do we offer the students opportunities to create their own checklists and their own next steps? And I don't know that we do that. And in doing so, we're really giving the students an opportunity to build that self-efficacy that they're going to need as they progress into college. And that doesn't require all that much work on the part of the teacher because the student is actually doing a little bit of the heavy lifting. It may require a little bit, it'll require modeling from the teacher and maybe some scaffolded support. But we want the student eventually to say, well, I really need to work on the organization. Well, okay, well, what do you need in order for the organization to come and play in this essay, right? And then talking the student through what they're going to do next. Oh, do we need to go back to the outline? Do we need to underline the topic sentence of each paragraph? Is it clear to the reader, right? And so as you're doing that, you want to build instead of telling the students, have the students do a little bit more of the ownership in that sense. And I think that could take things really far because I asked my students, what's your next step? Right, in college.
And you're also really talking to the power also of rubrics, giving students rubrics or having them develop rubrics around what is a proficient or a well-developed example of whatever proficient, developing, and emerging. One task I love working on with teachers is whatever they want their students to produce, if they could even take old examples from, say, previous years. So they want students to be writing a compare and contrast essay. So have those old exemplars from other classes, have an emerging example, a developing, a proficient, and a well-developed. And then engage your students in an activity around which is which and why. That helps produce that rubric. And then to what you're talking about, Johanna, as they're working on whatever it is they're working on, then almost using that rubric in a way as a checklist for them to be evaluating their own work and what their next steps are. Have you done anything like that with the students that you've had, whether as a college administrator, teacher, or as a K-12 teacher?
So yes, and there's actually research behind students using rubrics and peer evaluation. So shout out to Dr. Heidi Andrade, who's done really great work about that. So anything that I suggest, please know there's going to be some research behind it. I have definitely co-created rubrics with my students as a teacher, and it helps them to understand the process. And it really gives us a chance to laser in on what are those categories and what do those gradations look like. I even did it for behavior with my 8th graders. And my favorite part was, still laugh to this day, boy, were they honest about self-assessing themselves on their behavior. Like, they were like, yeah, I don't always listen. I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do about that? It's really helpful because it opens up the conversation for us to talk about, well, where are we now and where are we headed? And obviously, in the college space, the rubrics most likely are there, right, from another professor. But we also need to unpack it and not make that assumption that everyone understands what that rubric means. And it's not just a grade. How are we communicating? And this is a big thing that I thread throughout my book. It's how are we communicating the why throughout all of our lessons? How will what we're learning today in 8th grade help us next year, the year after, and beyond?